Most leaders assume that leading in the midst of uncertainty requires greater flexibility. But in my experience, uncertainty actually requires more stability because stability is what creates the capacity to adapt well. When you're on a boat and a massive wave comes, your goal is not to make the ocean calm. Your goal is to ride the wave without capsizing. Here's what I've found after more than 2 decades of leading teams through real uncertainty. The problem isn't the uncertainty. That's a given. The problem is that most teams don't have the internal stability to respond to it without capsizing. Think about it this way. When priorities are unclear, when work lives in people's heads, when no one really knows what success looks like, and when your team isn't regularly solving problems together, every disruption feels like an urgent crisis. You're spending your days answering questions, putting out fires, making decisions that shouldn't have reached your desk in the first place, and there's no capacity left to handle the legitimate challenges when they actually show up. But when those foundations are in place, teams adapt quickly. They see challenges clearly. They have the capacity, the clarity, and the confidence to face hard things together. So today, I'm going to walk you through a 4-month framework for stabilizing your team. Not so that things will stop being uncertain, because they won't, but so that when the unforeseen hits, your team has the capacity and the confidence to respond well rather than go into reactive mode. I'm Dr. Alicia Granholm, leadership strategist, and I help leaders develop teams that deliver results so they have the space to think, lead, and live. Let's get into it. Month 1 is about 2 things: transparency and consistent problem solving. Your team cannot respond well to uncertainty when they don't have current relevant information, know how to solve problems collaboratively, know how things are actually going across the team and organization, or know what people's actual capacity is. The fastest way I've found to create that transparency and collaborative problem solving is through a weekly meeting with a very specific agenda. I've adapted this from EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, and every team I lead starts here, and it goes like this. You open with good news. Everyone shares some personal good news from their life. And if things aren't going really well, then simply let them be honest about where they're at today. Spend 5 minutes there, and it matters much more than you think. Then review your data. Any metrics that have been off track for 2 consecutive weeks become issues that you'll discuss later in the meeting. Then you do a quick status update on your quarterly priorities. Go through headlines. These are time-sensitive updates from across the organization about employees or customers. And then you review any to-dos from your previous meeting. And then you spend the bulk of your meeting on what EOS calls IDS. Identify, discuss, and solve. You rank any of your open issues by impact, and you work through them one by one until they're actually resolved. Not tabled, but solved. And then you move on to the next one. You close by reviewing new to-dos, any information that needs to be shared with others, and then you rate the meeting. Every time I introduce this agenda, people love it. And that's not an accident. It's designed that way. The second piece of month 1 is a task audit. I've never met a team that is doing too little. Every single time I start working with a new team, I find work happening that no longer serves the mission, but no one's ever stopped long enough to question its value against other work that must be done. So you're going to create a simple spreadsheet, give everyone a tab, and then ask them to list every task and project they're currently working on, how much time it takes them, and how frequently do they do it. Is it weekly? Is it daily, monthly, quarterly, annually? This is going to take them about an hour. For now, you're just going to gather information. Don't start cutting anything yet. You'll need what you find in month 2. Month 2 is about measurement. Once people have a consistent way to solve problems together and there's more transparency across your team, you need a way to know whether things are actually going well or just feeling okay. That's what metrics do. Everyone on your team gets at least one metric, something they track weekly. If you're not tracking it, you don't actually know how it's going, and that means you can't help them. And here's why this matters beyond just accountability. Metrics give your team members clarity about what success in their role actually looks like, and clarity is a gift. To figure out what to measure, go back to that task audit from month one. Look at the work that's most essential to your mission and your annual goals today. And for that work, create relevant weekly or monthly metrics. I'll give you some examples from my own team. Our business team tracks how many financial items are processed outside of 7 days. Our customer service team tracks tickets with more than a 48-hour response time. Marketing tracks weekly registrations. Content team tracks course completion rates. These aren't just numbers, they're early warning systems for us. One of our weekly team metrics actually showed us the exact month our digital platforms started taking a hit from AI search result changes. We watched it play out in real time over several months, which meant we had the information we needed to make this a priority for the next quarter before it became a crisis for our digital platforms. That's what good metrics do. They give you the capacity to respond before you're reacting to a crisis. Now, month 3 is where you build alignment. Once you have transparency and real-time feedback, you can focus on the harder question. Is everyone working on the right things for right now? This is where quarterly rocks come in. I've borrowed this language from EOS as well, and it's one of the most practically powerful frameworks I've used. Here's how it works. Using your annual goals, you determine what must be accomplished in the next 90 days in order to achieve them. Set 4 to 7 organizational or team rocks. Each one must be owned by only one person, not a team, not a committee, one person, otherwise it will not get done. Then everyone on your team sets their own individual rocks that will align to those team or organizational priorities. A few things I've learned along the way about this is that you really want to be realistic. Depending on someone's role and their workload, leadership team members might have 3 to 7 rocks per quarter, everyone else 1 to 3 maximum. And here's what no one tells you about this process. An 80% completion rate is excellent. You're working 90 days into the future. And with the rate of change right now, you simply cannot know with certainty what those 3 months hold. Some rocks turn out to be way more complex than you might have initially thought. Some get canceled because circumstances simply change. That's not failure. That's leadership responding well to reality. What I love most about quarterly rocks is what eventually is going to happen in your conversations with your direct reports. Over time, they start to sound like this. We know X, Y, and Z is coming next quarter. We don't know exactly how that's going to affect us yet, so let's make sure you have enough margin to respond once it becomes clear. That's not reactive leadership, that's strategic leadership. See, we know for certain that unforeseen things are going to happen. We simply need to start planning to have the capacity to respond to them. We don't know what it is going to be, but we do know that if we have margin in our workload, we're going to be able to respond to it without it becoming a crisis that overwhelms us every time. Now, month 4 is about knowledge that survives individual people. The more uncertain and volatile your environment is, the less you can afford for critical information to live in people's heads. People take time off. They unexpectedly get sick. They leave. If your team can't function when someone is out, you have a fragility problem. And in uncertain times, that fragility becomes a very real liability. The solution is very simple. Go back to that task audit and have everyone create standard operating procedures, SOPs, for their work. Not complicated ones, but simple enough that someone who's never done the task before could just step in and handle it while they're out. Give your team 1 to 2 months to complete this for their work. I recommend simply spending an hour a week to do this, or have people start writing their SOPs the next time they start each new task. I've had multiple team members out for months due to unforeseen, sudden, major illnesses. If we hadn't had SOPs in place, we would have been months behind on major initiatives and to abandon experiments that we'd already invested in. The SOPs protected the work. And they protected the people because they came back to a team that had been holding things well, not a pile of mess waiting for them. So here's what you've built. Your team knows what matters. They know how success is measured. They know who owns what. They know how to solve problems together. And they know how critical work gets done, even when people are unavailable. That's stability. And while stability doesn't eliminate uncertainty, it does create the capacity to respond to it well. So the next time something unexpected happens, it goes into your weekly meeting as an issue to discuss and solve. And in that conversation, you're going to discover whether you're dealing with what Heifetz and Linsky call a technical challenge or an adaptive challenge. A technical challenge is one that's already been solved somewhere by someone else. You just need to find the solution. That becomes someone's to-do or maybe a rock for next quarter. Now, an adaptive challenge is harder. It's the kind of challenge where no solution exists yet, at least not for your specific situation. AI disruptions to your business model, a funding environment that shifted under you, a culture problem that resists every intervention you've tried. For adaptive challenges, you're going to discover the solution by running experiments. Keep them simple, invest as few resources as possible because the goal is the learning, not the result. Set a timeline, 30 to 90 days, and build in feedback loops so you can actually learn from what happens. Then iterate. Anytime we're doing something new, we cannot know with 100% certainty how it will turn out. Everything you try teaches you something if you let it. That's not a consolation prize. That's the point. The problem isn't uncertainty. The problem is that most teams don't have the internal stability to respond to it without capsizing. These 4 months won't make the waves stop, but they will change what happens when the waves come. Not if, when. And that's the difference between a team that capsizes and a team that learns to ride each wave. If this video was helpful, subscribe. This channel is for leaders who are done reacting and ready to lead strategically. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.